Okay, so this one is about the nature of desire. And I think this one, my hope is that a few lights will go on for people who are watching it, in the same way that these lights went on for me when I had these realizations. So desire is a very tricky one because there is so much shame relating to desire. So much shame about it. And, when we discover things with, shame within us, like resistance to pleasure, for example, we could have an experience as a child where, we have some event and, as a child, you're curious, you and, you're having a bath or a shower and, you see certain things. And I mean, you can see, I'm even tentative talking about these things, but you're a child and you're naked and you're curious. And if you see something down there, you're going to be what is that thing? In the same way you'd want to discover and figure out what this thing attached to your head is, it's your ear. You're going to want to discover and touch other appendages on your body and figure out what they are. Now, most of us, I would say, grew up in an environment where we were told that was not right. And, it's a generational thing. No, dirty. Dirty is the classic one. And, you just taught that. You go to, if you're like me, I went to Catholic school, and that kind of thing was absolutely dirty. The notion of self-pleasuring. And so you've just got this, it starts when you're a child, a very young child. Your curiosity to explore is stopped dead in its tracks with dirty. And so, of course, you're a child, you get a little slap on the wrist. you get punished by, an authority that has control and power over you, being your parent. And you don't dare explore that. And you just believe that it's because it's dirty. Now, this is so common. It is so common. But this was one of the, on my personal journey, this revelation and this realization that, when I found this within myself, it was huge for me. It was huge for me. When I was able to reconcile the assumption I made about the truth in that moment as that small child, was profound. Looking at it through the lens of the human being that I am now, but understanding the perspective of the child, it was a profound revelation for me. And, what I've discovered for me personally is that our link to pleasure, our guilt and our shame for experiencing pleasure is linked to debauchery. There's no way we would ever accept that we want to be debaucherous. But the meaning of debaucherous means to indulge in pleasure. And when you're all mixed up and you've got this bird's nest of beliefs, all entangled with a child's perspective on what the hell's going on, you get very confused about, the entanglement between sex, pleasure, debauchery, perversion, distortion, and it's all just taboo. So you just don't want to look at it. You don't want to acknowledge it. But here's the issue. And here's the massive, massive issue. And this is this is so powerful when you wrap your head around this. It's life-changing in my view. Lust is bound up in all of this. The shame for being lustful. And because if we have lust, it means we want pleasure. If we want pleasure, it means we're debaucherous. And so there's the total knot of lust and entangled with pleasure, self-pleasure, perversion, and the problem with that is the massive problem with that is that lust is desire. Lust is desire. It is the the best way to describe it would be to say that it's actually, you would think it's the shadow aspect, like I don't like using Bible terms, but it's the sinful primal feeling that we have that we're trying to avoid, and we're so ashamed that I'm lustful. But the original meaning of the word lust is pleasure and delight. The derivation of the meaning of lust was originally pleasure and delight. There's nothing sinful, there's nothing bad or naughty about lust. Lust is the desire for pleasure. And pleasure is delight, as in delight. Almost as if to say of the light. And from my own inner journey and exploration with, to discover the parts of myself and to realize that I'm not just one thing, I'm a hybrid of multiple things. I've come to understand the nature of my spirit is it is driven by pleasure, and it is driven by delight. It is a part of your nature. In the same way that fish swim, you lust. And so, when you think about unpacking that for a second, I want to just give it some more of a backstory first to the entanglement of lust and pleasure, because many of you will relate to this, and that is if someone asks you what you want, you struggle to respond. You have a conversation with someone and you want to it's just a conversation. A topic comes up and someone's trying to understand a preference that you have. And so they're asking you questions. They'll begin with, what do you want? And it just, it's just crickets. It's just silence. And so they might ask again, what do you want? What's your preference? And the immediate reaction is, I don't know. I don't know what it is. And it's just so common in people. They think they don't know what they want, but here's the reality of it, and it's profound once you understand this, is that you are ashamed of what you want because of this exact entanglement that I've been talking about. And it's obviously more intricate than just this. There's lots of different emotions that are bundled up in this, emotions like intimacy, emotions like what's that emotion that it's you typically link with a mother and her child. Tenderness is it's a very vulnerable emotion. So, we certainly don't want to get that mixed up with, lust and perversion. And the reality is we are all just so mixed up about all of this stuff. We are so mixed up about all this stuff. And the problem is we are ashamed of being lustful. And here's the magic epiphany, the secret key that'll unlock this for you. You are lustful. You want pleasure. You want delight. Your spirit wants it more than anything. Share delight. Share pleasure. Just for the experience of it. Just for the sensation. Its entire nature of its existence is to facilitate the experience of higher and higher emotions. It wants to experience as broad a spectrum of emotion as possible. It wants to experience the alchemy of them all infused together. It wants to see if you can combine certain emotions in order to create a new one. It is endlessly curious to sense and to experience sensual experiences through vision, taste, touch, smell. What am I missing? Sound. And, other senses that are more subtle. That's the nature of its existence. And so if you're someone who really struggles to be able, if someone asks you what your preferences are for anything, no matter how small or big, and you can't decide, you can just never decide, you can just never make a decision, or you start getting, you become really anxious when people keep asking you what you want and you don't know. And so, it's human nature for them to probe. Well, what about this? Have you considered this? Well, what about this? And what about this? Have you tried this? And you feel it like it's pressure. Just pressure coming in, probing you, and it feels to you like you're being forced to reveal that you're a pervert. It's like you're being forced to reveal that you're some lustful, grotesque aberration of nature, just because you're being asked to reveal your desires. Now, if you're on the receiving end of this, it's a horrendous experience. It's a horrendous experience. But for the other person, they're just sitting there going, what do you want? I just, we're getting ice cream. Do you want chocolate or vanilla or, do you want to make that booking on Thursday or Friday? 7:30 or 8:30, and you end up having this massive long conversation. And for people who really feel threatened by revealing a desire, they have no choice but to manipulate their desire, but to manipulate what they want from you by you having to guess. And so you can probably see where this is leading now. People who have an aversion to revealing their desires are terrified of being exposed as perverted. And they've got massive layers of guilt and shame for having desires, you see? Now, they don't consciously realize this, but Their guilt and shame is keeping these things well hidden. No one can come close to these. Do not probe me for a desire. I don't want you to see how debauched I am. I don't want you to see how perverted I am. I don't want you to find out that I do lust for things, that I do want pleasure. And like every other being, human being on the planet, yes, you want to self-pleasure. Yes, you want sexual pleasure. Yes, you have sexual desire. And I mean, when you bring the word sexual into it, all of us have sexual desire. All of us. All of us. It is the nature of creation, of everything in existence. Whether it be, a star system, a galaxy, a universe, a cell, a human being, a tree. I'm looking around my office for things that rely on sexual energy in order to procreate. But it's an office, it's not the garden. But you get my drift. We depend on it. It's the force behind all of creation. And if you've listened to my podcast episode on the nature of creation, I talk about it there, where in order to create anything, it relies on a marriage, on a union of masculine and feminine. And the masculine has to penetrate the feminine. It has to. The feminine has to surrender. The feminine has to receive the masculine wholly. And that, when it gestates, it's being nurtured in the womb. And when it's birthed, it's a marriage of both. You see it in our DNA. This is sexual energy driving the entire thing. The entire thing. Even the nature of a virus penetrating a cell. Violating that cell wall with its, whatever that phallic thing is called. It just smashes through that wall and injects its DNA. In nature, you see these violations in order to express sexual energy. And as a result, we have everything in existence becoming more, realizing higher and higher potential, experiencing wider and deeper spectrum of pleasure. The gamut, the gamut becomes bigger and bigger. The palette goes wider. More and more flavors to experience. And we are so resistant. We are so resistant to pleasure. We're so resistant to desire. And, there's I don't really know that much about the Bible, but I know little tidbits. But, if there really was, imagine there really was a devil, and, this would be the greatest trick to play on a human being, to convince them to be afraid of the energy of their power, basically, to convince them that they should be ashamed of the part of them that, when expressed, has the power to create a new universe, has the power to procreate. Because for as long as a desire remains hidden, remains repressed, remains unseen, then a fulfilling creation can never be experienced. True fulfillment can't be experienced. That experience of true love in your like your cup running over can only be experienced when there's a marriage of masculine and feminine energy. Otherwise, it's empty, because it's the ego having to take the place of the authentic masculinity or femininity. It's the authentic masculine and feminine is veiled. Because if you're withholding your masculine or your feminine nature, it's it's your ego that takes its place. So, but I want to say this with total compassion, because of course, but I also want, I want you to really understand that you are debaucherous. You are. You're lustful. You're sexual. You have desire. And you are ashamed of it, probably. And it's okay. It's totally okay. And it's totally understandable. Of course you are. Of course you are. And so now you can understand that part of you that is the 4-year-old child, like me, who just adopted a belief that it was dirty to want to pleasure myself, whether that's through revealing a desire, expressing a desire, exposing to people what it is I really want, feels dirty. And that was normal for me to feel that way for most of my adult life. And, you have to become a master manipulator. You have to become a master orchestrator. And so, if you want to look at the people in society that we shun the most, like a sociopath, for example, these are the people who resist their desires the most. These are the people that have the most guilt and shame about their desires. And so when you have that intense shame about what it is you actually want, you have no choice but to be an absolute master manipulator and never show a sign of emotion. Definitely not desire. You survive by being a husk. And, it's, of course, that's a broad generalization. It's important to understand. When I'm speaking, I'm always generalizing because, it's the only way to cover a topic in a general way. And, everything in society is a reflection of what's within us. All these people that we look at and judge and think are bad, or we think we need to lock them away. If you have a feeling within you that you need to lock someone away, it's just showing to you that you've got something within you that is locked away now, that you don't want anyone else to see. And, this is why I want to reveal these things. And, I wish I could say to you, there's a magic wand to wave and all of a sudden you're going to be able to reveal your desires. And it doesn't work like that. The only way for you to become an absolute creative powerhouse is for you to make the decision to feel debaucherous, to feel ashamed, to acknowledge that you have sexual desire, and to feel the shame, to be ashamed. Claim the I am of it. I am ashamed. I am ashamed because if you can get to the point where you can acknowledge what you want. I am ashamed because I do want, I do want to be penetrated by a man, or, whether you're a man or a woman. All of these feelings and all of these things that make you go, ugh, that make you go, oh, yuck, dirty. You've got to own them. You've got to own them. You are dirty. Because this is the key, and this is, a lot of people get confused when I talk about this. They get a bit like, oh, man, you're getting me to claim all these dark things, and, something about it doesn't feel right. The reason why you have to is because it is your truth now. And you can only ever work with the truth now. Right now, through the lens of your perspective of the 4-year-old child that still believes it's dirty, you have to claim the truth of that now. I am dirty. And what happens is your resistance to that part in that moment vanishes. And it's like ripping the Band-Aid off. And from there, it's lost its power. You're no longer resisting it. You've claimed the truth of it, but immediately in that moment, you can look at it and you can say, you can observe it as the observer self. You can observe it and say, that was my truth in that moment. And in the moment that I claimed the I am of that I no longer tried to resist it. I became aware that I'm now looking at it through a new lens, and I can see that my truth now, in this now moment, is that it's totally natural. It's totally pure. That there's nothing wrong with pleasure. That lust simply means the desire. And it goes on and on and on. So you can see the path to reclaiming your truth. Well, the path to realizing your ultimate truth lies in claiming the distorted truth. You can't reject the distorted truth because it is the truth for you now. The belief of that 4-year-old is true for you now. So you can't become whole by turning your back on it and saying, well, no, I want to change it to this. You have to go into the eye of the storm, and you have to go into it and go, I am disgusting. I am a pervert. Whatever those feelings underneath the shame. And so what I do is I just feel the shame, I sink into it, and then I start describing the nature of the feeling. I am ashamed. And as you claim each part of it, as you say, I am ashamed, you can feel yourself sliding deeper into it. I'm a disgrace. I'm disgusting. I'm foul. And no matter how dark those emotions are, you express them. I am. And then what you'll notice is you'll fall out the bottom. And all you're left with is the desire. And you'll give yourself permission. I want. And from that moment on, you will not have resistance to expressing your desires. Someone asks you what flavor of ice cream you want. You'll go straight to it because there's no shame in the way. You haven't got this massive wall, which is like, I would say it's like mist. When I see it in my vision, the way it presents itself to me is I see it as this cloudy mist, but I can't get through it. It's foggy and almost tacky, actually. So someone says, what flavor ice cream do you want? When you go to the desire, it's not blocked by all that shame. You haven't got all that guilt and shame repelling you back. And so you go straight into it and you sink straight into the actual desire. Oh yeah, I'll have chocolate. And, if you can reconcile this within yourself, your life will change radically. It'll change radically because the people around you will know what you want. You'll know what you want. And if you know what you want, you can create anything. If you're someone that is a proponent of, conscious creation, whether you call it manifestation or alchemy or whatever you want to call it, if you're a proponent of that and you struggle to create what you really want, if you unlock this, you can likely experience radical transformation. And I mean radical. If this has really been an issue for you and you're able to claim the I am of all those dark, disgusting emotions, this can have a radical impact on your life because, and you'll notice it, someone will ask you what you want. And instead of having to manipulate someone into guessing what you want or somehow discovering it, you'll just say it. I'd really love to spend time with you. I'd really love for us to go on a holiday. I'd really love to get a nanny part-time to help me look after the kids. I'd really love to homeschool the kids, but I need to talk to you about how we can manage that as parents. I really want to go to university part-time, but I want to have a conversation with you about how we manage the workload. You see? Rather than having to manipulate people through pity. I mean, pity is the main one. If you, if you have a desire within you and it's too dangerous for you to reveal your desires in your mind because of the guilt and shame you've got, you have no choice really but to oppress yourself into, it's martyrdom is the reality of it. You have to martyr yourself in the hope that other people will see your pain and come up with the solution for you. And so, you could, rather than, so if you ever feel manipulated by people, and I'm hypersensitive to it myself because I'm a relentless creator, so I'm always seeking the desires of the people around me. I'm always seeking the ideal scenario. And so my energy to a person like that can feel quite oppressive at times. And, I've had some pretty bad experiences with where me trying to uncover the desire within someone, they've felt totally backed into a corner and they've had to lash out to shatter the energy. And I've gone, oh my God. So, when you understand these people, and, I lump myself in that category as well. The reason I discovered this is because I found it inside myself. So this isn't me preaching that, you need to do this, you need to do that. This is me sharing with you what I discovered within myself, but I see it in so many different people. I think most of us have this. So if you do feel manipulated, you can, rather than reacting and trying to shame them for manipulating you, which is what I used to do. I'm not. I don't sound like a very nice person, do I? I just am who I am, and I'm just hype, and I'm aware of it, But now, when I discover these things, is the moment I understand them, is the moment that authentic compassion arises, and understanding and mercy even. So where, mercy, you can express mercy when you're going, this person is manipulating me and I don't like it, and I'm in a position to cause them pain, potentially through humiliation by making them aware that they're humiliating me, or I can become aware that they are someone who feels threatened by having to reveal their desires or say what it is they want. And I can allow them to save face. Now, so saving face is, I was actually going to do an entire episode on it, but I'll touch on it now. Saving face is an act of mercy. Allowing someone to save face is an act of mercy. Now, a lot of people will say, you should never sacrifice yourself, ever. You should always stand in your truth. Now, that perspective is devoid of mercy. It is devoid of mercy. And if you find yourself that you hold that perspective, then you are not understanding the people around you to the depths that you could do. Because mercy is a beautiful emotion, and when it's evoked within you, you don't feel that pain anymore. When authentic mercy is evoked within you, the only desire that you have is to end the suffering of that person. And that's when you save face. It may seem like it's at your cost, but it's not, because you're expressing a desire to end the suffering of that person. You can see that they could easily be humiliated if I continued pressing them for their desire. Or they could feel threatened, lash out, destroy the energy in the room, ruin the meeting, have a crap day at work. Mercy is authentic, and it arises, and it seems like self-sacrifice, but it's not. Because what you want is trumped in the moment by an authentic desire to end their suffering. And so hopefully that makes sense. I know it is a real bird's nest, and I know it's hard to claim really dark and twisted and horrible emotions, but understand that when you're claiming them, because you've been in such resistance to them, it's the perspective of the child that's holding the truth, your current truth. And so just be gentle and just realize that your truth now was based on a very limited perspective of that child, that it's dirty to want to pleasure yourself or experience pleasure that's induced by yourself. And of course, lust is not desire. Well, I mean, it is desire, but there is nothing that's sinful about it, because one of the most powerful parts of you, its nature, is to experience as much pleasure as humanly possible. And so I think I'll leave it there. I feel like I may go into this in more depth. Anyway, the inspiration will arise. Hopefully that's ripped the Band-Aid off for you. And if you are someone that struggles with revealing your desires, hopefully this feels like a warm blanket for you. You're definitely not alone. And, even highly evolved people, well, it's not really how I wanted to say that, but people who are extremely self-aware still struggle with this. It's really embedded in the collective, in the psyche of human beings, this belief that desire is perverted. And once we reconcile it, once we claim the I am of it, your life can radically change. And so my hope for you is that if you are one of these people and you are listening now, that it does resonate, and you understand yourself enough to be able to claim the absolute truth of these emotions and sink into them and truly experience them and allow them with total understanding that the only reason you believe this now is because you adopted it as a 4-year-old child or however young you were. And, there could be multiple experiences you had that caused you to believe this. If you read the Bible, then there's a number one reason right there. But it can radically change your life, for sure. From my perspective, I would say the number one bottleneck for people in terms of creating what they actually want is the ability to articulate their desires. And so imagine being able to shift this permanently. You'd just be unstoppable. You'll just be unstoppable because you've been overcompensating for it your entire life. That part of you that you're not allowing to be expressed has been veiled by an ego for your entire life. And you won't have to manipulate people anymore to get what you want, or to share your perspective. And that's a beautiful feeling. It's a wonderful feeling. Okay, that's it for the nature of desire. Catch you soon.